Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Intentional Guy on Air. I'm your host, Michael Chestnut, and today I have an author with us, Kim Sorrelle, with her book out, Love Is, and I got my copy right here, Kim. I'm excited. This is something that me and my wife are we're going to read together. In fact, I'm going to share a little bit more as we get into our conversation. But I want to thank you for joining us. You're our first female to be on air with us. So I'm excited about that because we do have a lot of women listeners too. Uh, Intentional Guy actually is me, you know, and God gave me that word several years ago, and I didn't understand that how the word intentional was going to change my life like it did, but it drew me closer to God and to be purposeful in my life, and that's why I love good books like yours and stuff because they help get me to another level of understanding of what God is trying to do in my life, you know. So it's a great book. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that at the end, where they can get it at, do all that. But you have such a tremendous testimony, and if you wouldn't mind, Kim, go ahead and just kind of give us a backstory on you, and let's talk about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I have listened to your show. It's fabulous. And
Thank
I
you.
can see where people would get a lot out of it. And so thank you for what you're doing. Yeah, so I'm a mom, a grandma. We know what it's like to be a grandparent, how great that is.
Yes, best thing ever.
Best thing ever, exactly. And it's interesting. I got married very young. I was going to be the first woman president. That was my plan. I had my life laid out before me, and marriage and family were not part of the equation. And then this tall, dark, handsome man walked into my life, and I was immediately smitten, fell in love rapidly, and got married. And a couple years later, started having babies. And I love that man. He's a fabulous guy, and I could not wait to become empty nesters because we had just a couple years together before the babies started coming. And
Right.
so, whatever it is that you do when you're an empty nester, I was excited for that, whatever that meant. And so, we became empty nesters. And a month later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
And then going through my stuff just 4 months later, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away 6 weeks after that.
Oh, wow.
And going through that was an interesting time, Michael. You know, one of the first things people would say to me is, Kim, why you? Because I run a nonprofit organization. I've coached rural sports for years and years. I've been involved in a whole lot of different things. I work hard, play hard, whatever it is everybody does in life. But people would say, why you? Why you? And immediately my response was, well, why not me? why
Hmm.
why would I be immune? Who am I that it would be any different for me? I don't think God is up there smiting people saying, oh, you've
Right.
done wrong, so therefore you get cancer, but you've been good, you've been pretty good, so cancer is going to just slide on by you. I don't think that that's how it works. And so it can be easy to say, why me? Why am I going through? Why am I the one having to do this? But the reality is, it can be any of us anytime with anything. And I think God looks more at our response to things than the things that we're going through.
Yeah. Mm.
And so it was an interesting time, a crazy time, and never expected. To get one cancer diagnosis in a family rocks it, right?
Right.
Changes
Oh,
everything.
yes.
But then to get two just back to back, and then to lose the man that I was going to grow old with. We were going to be in our
Right.
90s and rockers drinking lemonade on the front porch. And I was 47 years old and alone. And it was quite a time of life.
Oh, I can't even imagine because, like you said, just one diagnosis of cancer in a family is devastating. But two, and then to lose your spouse so quickly after that, I can't imagine the pain, and you said this, the loneliness. The loneliness is something that can just really get you. And then, you know, you can't help, and I don't know if you went through that, but sometimes, people question God, why, you know, like you said, just then why me? But it's an easy response to do that. And I don't know why some people, it's amazing. I see some people, how they can take tragedy and they can rise above it. And then you have some people who just get stuck and bitter in that. And I think it's all on your mindset and how what you choose to do with it, you know. And
Yeah, choose is the word. I think that's the big word there. I learned early on that there are some things you have no control over.
yeah,
You have no choice. Things
right,
that like cancer. I never would have chosen to have cancer. I never would have chosen for my husband to have cancer. I never would have chosen to lose him so early, like I did. But there are other things that I do have control over. There are other things that I get to choose, and I get to choose how I'm going to live. I get to choose my level of happiness. I get to choose to find joy. I get to choose
yes,
to laugh. I think laughter is a big thing.
yes,
It's almost like when you lose somebody or you've gone through some tragedy, it's almost like you need permission to laugh again. Like if you laugh, you're somehow dishonoring the situation,
right.
you're dishonoring the person, right? But you're not. I think that's just something in our minds that, oh
Hmm.
gosh, we have to be somber. But in the somber, that can get addictive, the somber. And
Yes,
pretty soon we're just living in that. We're living and wallowing in the sadness instead of rejoicing in the good that can come and finding the good that can come. And so it's okay to laugh. It's Everyone has permission to laugh again. You have permission to be happy, and sometimes we need that.
yeah. Laughter's big in our family because sometimes if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. You know, and and I do like what you're saying because you get to, we do get to choose how to react to what comes our way in life. You know, and I think that gets us to where your book is because um, we were talking earlier about love, and the reason why I really was drawn to this subject and to your book is because as men, I think sometimes we have a false definition of love, or um, we don't like to. It's uncomfortable for us to because it shows your emotion, right? It shows this and that it can be. But you took a journey on this in your book, and it as I haven't finished it, but as I'm reading and seeing the things that you've come up across and against, and but you've learned, you dissected First Corinthians 13, and why don't you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Sure. Yeah. Losing my husband made me question love, the reality of love. Am I doing it right? What is it really? I mean, there's all these songs, there's, rom-coms, there's TV shows, you see love in different ways, different places, but everything that we have been taught about love isn't necessarily love. And things done in the name of love aren't necessarily love. But what is love really? And, there's been some people who have tried to live a year like Jesus and then written books about it. And I've always been so intrigued and can't wait to read the book because it would have to change your life, right?
Right.
But the ones that I've read, it's been more about wearing sandals and having a drink at a bar with strangers. It hasn't been this big moment of transformation like I would think it would be. And so I contemplated love, and was just praying and said, Lord, how do I figure this thing out that nobody seems to be able to figure out? How do I do this? And then I read in John, it says that God is love. God is love. God is love, not God loves, but that God is love. So love is something you can be. So it's not an emotion like fear or excitement, but it's something you can actually be. You're not going to be fear, but
Right.
you can be love because God is love. And so to know that love, the kind of love that God is, and then walk in it, live that love, be that love to others, that would be transformational. And love is universal. Jesus is different to different people. You know, to some he's a heretic, to some he's a prophet, to others he's God, but he's tipping over tables, you know, and to some he's
Right.
love and peace and joy and all things good. So what would Jesus do could be answered different ways by different people, but what would love do should be a universal answer when you understand love. So
And
I decided,
I love what you just said too, because like me, I'm on this journey. I want to be more Christ-like every day, and I like what you just said. I mean, if God is love, then how do I emulate Christ if I don't know one what love is and how what He means by that and living it out? Uh, in our churches this month is love month for us, and we're hitting the community and doing all sorts of stuff. But I love that because you're exactly right. How am I going to emulate Christ if I I don't want to address love, if I shy away from love? So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to throw that out there to our guys. I mean, God's God commands us to love one another.
mhm,
That's just a commandment. I mean, that's what he commands us to do. So how do we do that without understanding love?
right, right. And being not just how to understand it, but being taught love wrong. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, because it's not like you read a manual on it, right? And
yeah.
so you learn it from the people around you, and it's crazy the
Great
things
point.
that I had to unlearn.
Yes, great point. Great point.
Yeah. Yeah, so I decided I would take this, you know, the love chapter, love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, etc., one word at a time, one word a month, and figure out what is love that is patient, you know, what is love that is kind. And there are 14 is's and isn't of love in that chapter. So it took me a little longer than a year, but I got it done. And what's funny is that every single one of those words, so when that was written, Paul wrote that to the Corinthians because they weren't acting that way toward one another. They weren't loving each other that way. And he was saying, hold on, you guys, you know, the way you're acting, this isn't cool because love is patient. It's kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. You know, this is what you need to know about love. And so even though we use it at weddings, like, oh, love is, you know, this doves should be flying and
Yes,
happiness should be in the air, right? And, you know, your train is being carried by the birds behind you, you know, whatever. That we kind of say it that way at weddings, but really it's this direction that Paul has given. Wait, stop what you're doing now, because what you're doing now is wrong. And let me teach you how to do this right. And so, what I did figure out is that every single word, every single one of those words, when you put love is or love is not in front of it, it totally changes the meaning. It
mhm,
changes the meaning of the word, like patient, very first one out of the gate, right?
right. A tough one, I'm
And
sure.
yeah, yeah. Well, I thought I've always been a little afraid to pray for patience because, you
Yes.
know, God will give it to you.
Tribulations come. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. But and I thought I knew what it was. The words all seem so simple, right? So patient, I know what patience is. You know what patience is. You're not, you know, getting upset because you're ready to go. They're not ready to go and you're waiting, you know, or someone's late for an appointment with you or whatever. You're staying calm and that's showing patience. That's being patient. But love that is patient is entirely different than that. Love that is patient, and what you said earlier is so true. We're supposed to love everybody. You know, that's the greatest commandment way back in Leviticus. It's in Leviticus, for goodness sake. And then it's carried throughout the Bible. Love God, love your neighbor, love yourself, right? Love yourself
Yeah.
is a big one. If you don't
Yes.
love yourself, it's awful hard to love other people. So when it comes to the love is patient, love is kind, do that to yourself as well. But
Yes.
so love that is patient, to me, what I believe that means is, first of all, you love the person you're with, and you love them enough to show them love that is patient in recognizing that this is the most important moment of your life. This moment right here, right now. What's
Yeah.
in the past is in the past. What's in the present is yet to come. This is the moment. And this moment is going to come and go with or without you. So this is the moment. And it was so easy for me to think about a meeting I had later that day, or having to stop at the grocery store on the way home, or something that happened yesterday, and be distracted in the moment, thinking that I was really there, thinking that I was listening, or even beyond that, thinking of whoever I was with as a distraction, like taking away from my day and taking away from my plans. But the reality is there's nothing more important than relationship. There's
Yeah.
nothing more important than people.
Yes.
So rather than looking at whoever has stopped you in the grocery store to say hello, or the 3-year-old tugging at you and tugging at you and tugging at you to get your attention, or whatever it is, whoever it is, to just stop and give your full attention, it
Mm.
changes everything. That is showing love that is patient. But one thing that it does is it makes you listen.
Yes.
You have to be quiet and listen. And when you listen, you hear the actual words. You're not hearing what you think they're going to say, but you're hearing what they're actually saying. And then you have a conversation.
Well, guys, listen, we just, for the first time ever, you know, my equipment shut down. And so what that tells me, Kim, is that God must be really hovering over someone right now, because the enemy really doesn't want this, what you have to say, to come out, you know? And I love those moments, because that will bring it on, because God is so much stronger. And it's funny, we were doing Love is Patient. So, and I'm sitting there going, I wasn't being very patient at the moment, but so we're back now, and so I'm sorry, you guys watching this and listening. There's a hard cut that will be there, but we're going to jump right back into where we were. And um, Kim, if you don't mind, yeah, we were on Love is Patient, and we were going through some more of of that book. And I was also wondering if you could share one of your stories with us that would
Sure.
help illustrate this with us.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I, I start each chapter with what I think the word means, what I think love is kind, or whatever what it is, and then I finish with my discovery. And so some of the words were easier than others to do. One of the more difficult ones for me that I kind of dreaded doing was love doesn't keep record of wrongs, because I thought, well, shoot, you might forgive, but you don't forget. We don't
Right,
forget the things that happen to us, right? So what does that
right.
even mean? Love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. How do you apply that to your life? How do you dissect that one? And so the month that I was working on that one, and most of the time I was in Haiti when I was
Hmm.
working on this, when I was living this year plus of love, figuring out love. And I was asked by a group of men from the US to show them a water project that I was working on in Haiti. And so I was asked to go with them. So there were 8 men from the United States. And then I brought along 2 Haitian friends to translate. And they'd been working on the water project, so they knew it inside and out. And the church affiliate that the men were part of had arranged for a place for us to stay out in the countryside. So we get to where we're staying, and it's a small building with a cement wall around it, which is common in Haiti. And it's this very small building with 2 rooms. and each room has 4 twin-size beds. So there's 8 American men, 2 Haitian men, and me. But we brought an air mattress. We brought a couple cots. There was a
Right.
little bit more room in the rooms. I'm thinking, whatever. We're in Haiti. You do whatever needs to be done.
Right.
So the head of the 8 men pulled me aside, and he said, Kim, can I talk to you? I'm like, sure. And he said, did you see the rooms? And I'm thinking, buddy, there's nothing else to see. This is a tiny place. I don't know what else there is to look at. And then I went, oh, he's going to think I want my own room. And so I'm going to say, well, it's okay. I'll sleep outside. And he'll say, well, no. If anyone should sleep inside, it should be you. And I'll say, well, I don't mind if there's men in my room. And he'll say, great, because there's only so much space and all will be well. We'll be all set. So I said to him, well, it's okay. I'll sleep outside. And he said, oh, good. Because there are men in the group that would be uncomfortable with a woman in their room. I'm thinking, oh my word, seriously, like in Haiti, it is so hot that you only go in there to sleep. That is the only reason you go in your room. And I wear clothes to bed. I'm sure they do too. I'm thinking, what can happen between
Right.
you fall asleep and the time you wake up in the morning that, what I had no idea with a group in a room, but I offered to sleep outside. So I had to figure it out. So I saw this piece of plywood and it was kind of being held up by 2 wooden structures. And I thought, well, shoot, we brought an air mattress. And if I sleep under the plywood, at least if it rains, I'll be okay. So very first night, it's time for bed. And I blow up the air mattress and crawl underneath. And my biggest fear was that a tarantula, a
Oh, yeah.
snake, a chupacabra, I don't know, whatever's lurking in Haiti will attack me, land on me, bite me, dismember me. I don't know. So
Right.
that was my fear, right? So I go to bed the first night and my air mattress held air for about an hour. And then I'm sleeping on gravel.
Oh,
And it was so loud. Dogs were barking everywhere. Horns were honking. It was so loud out there. And finally that died down about 1 o'clock in the morning or so. Then maybe an hour later or so, voodoo drums started in the distance. And that went on and on and on. And then maybe 4 a.m. it stopped. And so I was finally able to doze off. So the first night came and went without incident. All was well. So I'm grateful. Thank you, Jesus. I'm alive and well.
right.
So the second night, same thing. My air mattress loses all of its air, the dogs, the horns, the voodoo drums. Finally, I'm asleep. And then I woke up because there was something on my leg. I was scared to death. I could not even imagine what it was. Does Haiti even have the anti-venom? Are they going to airlift me to Miami? Am I going to lose a limb? Am I going to lose my life? What is going to happen? I was so afraid. So I slowly lifted my head and I slowly opened my eyes. And it was a chicken. There was a chicken on my leg. And I didn't know whether to be mad because the chicken stopped the little bit of sleep that I was getting, or happy that it was a chicken and not something much worse.
Right.
So I shooed it away. The third night came and went. Nothing happened. Fourth night, the dogs, the horns, the voodoo drums finally sleeping. And again, I wake up because there's something on my leg. So again, I am so afraid and I slowly lift my head and I slowly open my eyes. And again, it's the dang chicken. And again, I didn't know whether to be happy or mad. But that night we had chicken for dinner. So my fifth night came and went and was just fine. No more chicken. And at first, I got to say, I was pretty bitter. I was thinking, boy, I hope my sons wouldn't treat a woman like this. Like, why would they make me sleep outside, for goodness sake? Like I didn't get it. And I was angry at these men. And then realizing, of course, bitterness only hurts me. They don't know that I'm mad. They don't know that I'm bitter. I'm the one carrying that around. And then it dawned on me, I'm working on love keeps no record of wrongs. And that was the moment, so I'll never forget that time. It was intense. I'll never forget it. I will always remember it. And but the mood of the story has changed in my mind. And instead of it being, oh, these rotten men that did this rotten thing to me, now it's just this funny thing that happened to me. And I could literally sleep anywhere in the world and be just fine. And so the story didn't change. It's still the story, but the narrative in my mind changed. Instead of keeping a record of wrongs, instead of looking at this as something that wronged me, it's just a story. It's just something that happened. And that is love that doesn't keep record of wrongs.
And see, that's where I think your book is so helpful because to me, um, it's it. You have certain books that are make you feel good or knowledgeable, what have you. But this is a book that could change your paradigm. You know, it's and I love paradigm changes because it gives you more information that will give a direct change in your life because how you perceive things is not always correct, and how does God want us to perceive those things, it's totally different. And yes, we're human. All this, we're going to get upset. We're not going to like this stuff. But if you can apply what you just said at the end of this, you're going to reap a whole lot more because, like you said, what's the bitterness being angry at these guys going to do? What it's going to do is rob you of the joy of what your mission was in Haiti.
Mhm.
Otherwise, and now you've got this experience. You got this funny story about a chicken, you know, and but like you said, if you could survive that, you can go anywhere. You can do anything. It's empowering at the end of the day,
It
and
is.
that's why I want my readers to read your book because I'm so big about having a paradigm change in your life where you get that it changes. It's to me, it's like someone who's colorblind, and then they are able to put on those. They got those special glasses that you can put on, and you see the colors and how that just changes everything for you. How you can appreciate then the trees, the flowers, the building, the 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 sky, God's creation, and that's what I feel like what your book can do for us because if it can change our outlook on love, and this is just one part of what you are describing in it, so
Right. Yeah. I mean, it certainly changed my life. And I really do believe what you're saying is true. I think it would change anybody's life. And to even take it one step farther and realize that, again, God is love. So, and love doesn't keep record of wrongs. And to
right,
think of God that way, that, yeah, we've all done crappy stuff that we want forgiveness for, have been forgiven for, and need to accept that forgiveness, right? Sometimes that's the hardest part is accepting
right,
that we've
right,
been forgiven. But we all have stuff that we regret. We all have things, if we could turn back the hands of time, that we would do differently. But to think that God changes the narrative of the stories, and instead of smiting us, like we said before, or instead of saying, oh my gosh, that rotten person did this rotten thing, it's no, you are created in God's image, and so you are son, daughter of God, who knows that you went through what you went through, but doesn't hold it against you.
yeah, yeah. So let me ask you something on this, Kim. After you've you've written this book and you walked the journey that you did, can you tell us the transformation about that transformation in your life and how because that will probably help our readers our viewers understand why what you're doing is so important.
Yes, absolutely. My life changed in such huge ways. I recognize the value of people in a whole different way. And so each one of the 14 words that are in that passage, each one is so unique and different from the next that there are some tie-ins, but there's also a uniqueness to each one. So each one, even just one of them, holds such great value. But then times 14, it's crazy
Right.
the amount of things that I learned. And but there's this overall umbrella over all of love, and that is freedom. When you love the way God wants us to love, the way God loves us, the way God is love, you're completely free. There is no freedom in the world like this kind of freedom because you are free to just love. So if you are walking in this and you are just loving, then you're not judging. There's no room for condemnation to yourself or to others because of love. There's no room for racism, for discrimination of any sort based on anything. There's no, I'm better than the next person or I'm worse than the next person. There's no room for any of that. Your only job is to love. That's all you have to do is love. That's all you have to do. I think it's so freeing that we're not the judge, that there's not going to be some lineup someday that I'm going to be going, you're in, you're out, you're out. That I could never out anybody. Everybody would
Right.
be in if it were up to me, right? I don't know, however it's going to work, but I know it's not me. And my only job then is to love. My job isn't to fix people.
Yeah.
One thing I learned during this whole thing too is I only have control over myself. You don't have control over anybody. Your granddaughter is 16 months old. So
Yes.
you think, the baby's born and you have complete control. You control when they eat, when their diapers change, when they bathe, whatever. By 16 months old, you are not in control of that little girl anymore. She has a mind of her own. Is that not true?
Oh, that is so true. So true.
Yes, yes. So you don't have control over anyone. You control nobody but yourself. That's it. And so knowing that, you also have responsibility in a whole different way. You're not responsible for somebody else's actions if they have nothing to do with you. People do what people do, and that's on them. Your job is to love them through tough times, love them through happy times. Love them for who they are, love them for who God created them to be. Recognize our uniqueness as a beautiful thing and a wonderful thing. And it also gives you the freedom to realize that it's okay for people to have different opinions.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to think the same, right?
Right.
And in our country, we have such political divide. We have divide in families. We've got divide in marriages. We have divide in way too many things, right? There's a division.
Yeah.
Well, there doesn't need to be a division when you realize that it's okay to be different. It's
Right.
okay to think differently. It's okay to have a different opinion. That's okay. That's all right.
I
You
will
can
respect
have
you for your opinion. I may not have to agree with you, but I'm going to respect you for your opinion.
right, right. And love that is patient, that listens, that truly listens, realizes when you live love that is patient, you'll learn stuff. You learn, first of all, you're a lot more alike than different, but you
Yes.
also learn that maybe you don't know everything. Maybe I don't have the handle on all things true and wise. Maybe somebody else knows things that I don't know. And so when you really listen to somebody and hear their words and don't make assumptions about what they're saying, but actually listen, then
Mhm.
some of those confrontations, or pretty much all those confrontations, don't have to happen because it can just be conversation when you let
And
people be
I think
them.
what you're saying is great because you know listening is I'm a talker. So, listening is but in the last I would say the last year really but the last 2 years God's change has drastically changed me. And one of the things that I enjoy now is hearing people's stories and love listening to people because I see someone that looks broken or whatever. I'm drawn to them now because what's your, I want to know their story. And sometimes like what you said, listening to someone gives such value to them, and people want to be valued. And us as Christians, we're talking to someone who maybe doesn't know God, they're not going to, we might win them just by showing them love, because some people have not experienced love,
Hmm.
you know. And what great, I know that some of my listeners, and you can help me with this. I know you're a woman, um, but so one of the things with men, we don't like to talk about love, you know, and because we feel like that's a feeling, and it, it it's some kind of way it feminizes us, right?
Hmm.
But Jesus was anything but feminine when he walked the earth, and he was love. And those relationships in our lives, we show love in so many different ways, and walk in the journey like you're saying. I know that scares the fire out of probably some of the men that we're talking to. I'm talking to my wife. We're already looking at doing. We're going to do this book together, and we're going to take the challenge that you did, and each month focus on one of these attributes to it. And the reason why we're doing this is because we know that is going to be life changing for us. And I love you set the example, and we can learn from other people's. I love to learn from other people's failures and success, especially failures, because if I don't have to fail at something, to learn it, that's great. Learn at someone else, right? But you've put a road. You gave such a great idea. What a great idea. I've never. I'm one of these guys that only time I see First Corinthians 13 is in the weddings, and that's where everybody sees this. But this can help us become stronger men. You know, it's not feminizing in any way, shape, or form, but it will help us where we lack, because one of the calls is to love one another, love your neighbor, love, like you said, love yourself, too. What does that mean? Because a lot of people, that's like, oh, so here we go with that, love yourself type stuff. But we're talking something different, because when you took your month journey, like you said, the words, you thought they meant something else, but then when you experienced it, it brought a whole new paradigm to you of that, of what God was speaking about. Am I correct in what I'm thinking?
Oh my gosh, you're spot on. And it is interesting because you hear the word love, and love is thrown around in so many different ways. In some languages, you wouldn't say I love black licorice. I happen to love black licorice. And in our language, I would say I love black licorice. But in some languages, love is reserved for love between human beings, for that kind of love where we throw it around. And I think because we throw it around, it becomes much more casual. But then sometimes we don't throw it around where we should. Like I know so many people, me being one of them. I wasn't raised with my parents always saying I love you. That was a rare moment. I would cry. I cried the first time I remember my dad saying I love you. I cried.
Mm-hmm.
I almost tear up thinking about it because there's such powerful words when you tell somebody you love them.
Yeah.
And so often I think we think it's a couples thing, it's
Right.
between a couple. Well, it's not just between a couple. Certainly it is between a couple, but it's between everybody, everybody. It doesn't say that, Jesus didn't say love some people and other people, ignore them. He said love one another, love everybody, love everybody.
Yeah.
And so that means the person at the grocery store that just rammed into you with their cart, or the person that cut you off in traffic. And how do you love them, right? And what does
Right.
that mean? But something you mentioned earlier, Michael, I think is so true. Every day we live leads us to today. So we don't know people's stories like they know their stories. But most people, we don't have any idea what somebody's gone through. Somebody might have just gotten a bad diagnosis. Somebody may have just
Yeah.
lost somebody close to them. Somebody may have their spouse say that they're leaving them. So tragedy happens in people's lives. And when it does, our reaction to it is human. And we're going to be mad and we're going to be sad. We're going to be distraught. We're going to be all those things. We're not going to realize what's even around us or who we're affecting or who we're hurting because we're reacting to this tragedy, to this awful thing that's happening. And part of love is allowing for that. You
Yeah.
got to allow yourself to be mad sometimes and sad. We're human, and that's part of it. That's part of our journey. But also allow others, allow people to have a bad day. People are going to have a
Yeah.
bad day, and you can
Yeah.
still love them. Love shouldn't be
Yes.
conditional. It shouldn't be based on how you're being treated, which I think that's a big one. And maybe this will help men is when you get married. I'm sure most people hear this. Michael, you probably heard this, but people will say, oh, it's 50-50, or you both have
Yeah.
to give 100%. It's 100-100. They try to quantify it. They put a
Right.
number on love. But and they'll say, well, love is a two-way street. You both have to, you both have to. I say that's baloney. Love is a one-way street. Love is on you, period. Love should have nothing to do with whether or not you're getting love back. It should have
Yes.
nothing to do with that. Your job is to love, just love. And if somebody gives it back, great. If they
Yeah.
don't, it's their loss. That's on them. That's on them. That's
Because you
not
can
on
only
you.
control what you can control. You said earlier, so that's a great point. So yeah, I can control. I can't control if someone's going to love me back. I'm going to love. I I have a great story because my dad, growing up, I knew my dad loved us, but my dad did not grow up in a family where they said that, right?
Mhm.
And so my mom, all the time, I love you. Hang up the phone. I love you. Whatever, right? Well, we are the product of our environment and our childhood, right? So that was a big thing to me. And as I went through some of this life changing event stuff in my life, I don't. It was really strange. God challenged me to, life is short. Let your kids know you love them. Don't be that. I didn't want that relation. Like when me and my dad talk and I say I love you, it's kind of a awkward thing because my dad that's not been in our DNA, right? And
Mhm.
so I started um, that journey about 2 years ago, making sure, you know, I want you to know I love you. I just out of the blue, I just want you to know I love you, right? And the other day, my son, we were just talking when we were done. It wasn't on the phone or anything. When we were done, he just said he walked and then he stopped and he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I love you."
Mm.
I I'll get emotional in a minute over it, you know. But what value he gave me in that moment, you know. But I have to also think, would he have been able to model that had not shown that to him first? You know, and that
Mhm.
to me is why, as you men are listening, why it's so important for us to model love because uh, our sons are going to grow up whether we like it or not. I look in the mirror and I see my dad every day. They're going to do the same way, and if we don't model that for them, um, how are they going to be then? So it's if I value my family, I need to say that. I need to let them know that and let them know that it's more than just I love you at the end of a telephone call. You know, it's no, I love you. And when he stopped for that moment, then I realized how much value has that been to him when I did that to him. And we
Mhm.
don't think about that, but when you pour into people, like you said, we don't know what they're going through. And just that little act of love can be a life changing moment for them.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. And that is so huge. And it obviously is something harder for men to say than it is for women because there is something macho that is happening, right? But love shouldn't be macho. love is love, and it's something that you want to be a part of your life. You want to be able to express, and you want to let people know that you love them, and it is so important. I mean, I think sometimes I had a situation years ago with my mom where she was going through a hard time, and I wasn't raised in this "I love you" family, but I would throw it out there sometimes. I would try to say it sometimes, and I had a conversation with my mom. I was in a hurry. I wasn't showing love that is patient. I needed to go on to the next thing, and I hurried off the phone with her. And the next morning, I got a phone call that my mom had taken her life that night. And I live with this regret that my last words to her were not "I love you." And my last conversation with her was just this hurried, "I've got more important things to do." And the reality is that was the important thing. I needed to recognize what I know now about love and know that she was more important than my to-do list,
Yeah.
than whatever it was that I had to get done. And living with regret is not a good way to live.
No.
And so to end a phone conversation with "I love you," what a beautiful, beautiful thing, right?
Right.
And not just to your kids or your spouse, but to your friends, to uh, to the people in your life.
And sometimes it's not saying the word "I love you." It's emulating the love, you know, just taking, you're in a rush to do something, but there's someone that wants to talk to you just for a second, and you're like, blow them off and run off. You don't realize just taking that 1 minute, 2 minutes to stop for a minute. And I'm the type of guy that if I'm going to give you my time, when I worked at a prison, I was a teacher, and I learned this. They would come up and they would want something. I'd be writing, and I would say, "Hey, give me just 1 second." And sometimes they would get mad because they think I was blowing them off. And then but then I was like, "Listen, I'm not blowing you off. I just know that if I didn't finish this sentence on here, I wasn't going to give you my undivided attention." And then I would lay my pen down and I would say, "Now you have my full attention. How can I help you?"
Mm.
And then you would see their countenance change, because a lot of them, they were used to people just blowing them off or not listening. And I'm telling you, it would only take 2 minutes of my time. What is 2 minutes? It's a hundred. I can't do my math. 120 seconds.
Right.
Uh, you know, to give someone and just listen to them. That's love. That's
Mhm.
that's emulating love to them. And so sometimes it is, we have to stop and we have to do that, because if we want Jesus to work through us, then we have to be willing to follow his lead and where he guides us. And sometimes it's not always going to be convenient. You know,
Right. Right.
it's not always going to be convenient, and it's not always love is not always going to look pretty either. You know, uh, we know that as parents, it's not always. It doesn't. Sometimes it looks ugly too. Um, but is it a heart of love? Am I doing what I feel like Christ wants me to do? And how do we do that without understanding what God is telling us in 1 Corinthians 13 of love? You know,
Hmm.
it's a great example. So, well, Kim, so this is what we're doing. So we're starting a segment. I mean, we're starting a book club. It'll be coming out right before this airs, and we'll have a book. And in August, I'm challenging uh, my listeners. This is the book we're going to be doing. Love is, and we're gonna take that month, and read through your book And I'm going to get some of my friends, I'm going to challenge them to read this book. And then I'm going to ask them to come on air with us and have a panel discussing your book. So if you would be gracious, maybe to come back in August with us and let's look at this. I think I'm going to have my wife on it because we're going to read this together, and that way we have a male and female perspective of it, but we can go through this together and we can look at it because there's so much to dissect in what you've written in here, and it's a lot. Uh, it's a lot of soul searching, evaluation, and having a teachable spirit. Do you have a teachable spirit to learn to learn what God wants you to know about love? Because this is really an important subject, and that's why I wanted to have it on here. We're going to have an episode about fishing with Christ and stuff, stuff that men like to do. We like to go hunting, we like to go fishing, but this is so crucial to have this conversation and to read it. So yours is going to be the second book we do in this, and I want to invite you back at that time, and we'll sit down. At least me and my wife will with you, and we'll talk about the experiences of that and compare those. Sound good to you?
Oh, my word. Yeah, I would love to. That would be great.
And I'm going to put the link for your book in here. And I'm telling you, there's just so much to talk about. We could talk all day on. I mean, we've really only talked about the first few chapters on there, or few in there, um, and I love the conclusion that you have, and it's love never fails, right? So we're going to have to be intentional men. We're going to have to be intentional to love our family more. This is life changing. This is something that not to shy away from, but be bold in it. If for anything, for our family, for our kids, but for our community and for the church that we serve at, and for the people that God brings every day in our life that needs to feel valued and loved. How can we do that? This is a great tool to help us sharpen our ability to love others. But another one is loving ourselves too. Kim, one of the things you don't know, and I've said this over and over again. So, for since I was sexually abused as a child, and all the way up until this past year, I woke up every day saying I hate me. I hated me, you know? And I had a good friend tell me, "What does God see when he looks at you?" And I was like, "Nothing. I couldn't imagine." And in this year, through counseling, through other great relationships that God brought into my life that taught me different things, that's no longer my mantra. I no longer get up and say, I hate myself, you know? But now I'm learning to love myself, have mercy and grace on myself. And now I also thought before all this stuff happened to me, I did not think I was a judgmental person. I thought I had this, I'm pretty good with this stuff. No, I'm not. And when you do a self evaluation, you have to realize sometimes you don't like what you see coming back at you, right? And I found out, man, you are a judgmental person. Are you loving others? Are you treating people the way you would want to be treated, or you would want your kids to be treated, you know, or your spouse? And that has changed me now. And now I'm looking at people differently. And your book is going to help me now to love them better, because I think I fail in that area of what it means to love people. And so I appreciate what you wrote. Do you have any last comments before we log off today?
One thing that I would say is that love really is for everybody. And it's love that will change the world, it's love that will change your life. And it's what the world needs now, for sure.
Yeah.
And it needs to be unconditional. When you were talking about loving your kids, loving the people in your life, and showing that, demonstrating it, making sure they're aware of it. You're showing the love. That it can be hard when they screw up, and when people let you down, because people will let you down. But if you can maintain that love, even when people let you down, you don't withdraw it, but you love them through it. It
Yes.
changes you too.
Yes. Yes. And what a hard challenge to do, but you're going to grow exceedingly through that experience if you are willing to do it. If you're willing to do it. And it takes a willing spirit to love. It is a choice of ours to do. And that's what this podcast is all about, is making better choices to intentionally grow closer to Christ and be the person God has created us to be. And I thank you for coming on our show today. This book is going to be a great tool, and we'll get together, and we're going to have to book something in September so that we can come back. And I think I've already talked to my wife about it, so I think me and my wife are definitely going to be on this one day in September, and we'll discuss this after we have gone through this together, and we'll share how this has helped us. But I want to encourage my viewers to do that as well, um, to you know read this book, challenge you to love others, and see what that's like. Let's see what Christ has put in here to model. It's not just, you had this probably read at your wedding and haven't looked at it since, but this is important. And there's a reason why it's not just they do this at weddings because it sounds good and because we're talking about love, but because of the principles that are in this chapter are so crucial to us in that relationship with Christ. So, Kim, thank you so much for being with us today. And until next time, everyone, I just want to encourage you to keep being intentional. Thank you.